SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this Hump Day. Well, it's that time of year where it's so hot it hurts. It like inflicts pain on the body. Man, I'd walk the dog, the Wonder Dog night. Last evening, my normal nightly stroll, I usually don't get out till 9:30, 10. It was still dang hot at 9:30, 10. I worked up quite a sweat. And you know it's hot because poor Knight, about halfway through, his tongue was hanging about 2 feet out of his mouth. Oh, man. But we survived it, got on back. I had me a little ice cream after that. I needed to put it on my head, I felt like, to cool off. And Julie bought this little, like, cooling collar. I don't know that that's what it was designed for, but puts it on a nice little neck there, kind of cool him down a little bit. Trying to take care of the dogs. And folks out there, be sure you're aware. We normally talk about your pets when it's cold. When it's hot this time of year, that could be a problem for them, too. So make sure you're aware of that. They got
especially if you live in a more urban area. I know we don't really have urban, but the asphalt and concrete, especially on a really hot day, can be really hot.
It just radiates right off of it, man.
So if you're taking your dog for a walk on the sidewalk, it can burn their feet on the hottest of days.
Yeah, good point. And yesterday, of course, for our remote, in the great city of West Point, we were inside, second year in a row. You know, we used to do it outside, even though we were on the sidewalk there at the outlet mall, kind of under an overhang. It could still get pretty hot because it's always approaching Labor Day, and it's always just hot. You know, I've always thought we need to play football in the spring when it's cold and baseball in the fall when it's hot. I'm talking about the college level. Because those first couple of games, 2 or 3 games in September, they can be on up there, a little heated.
If the weatherman is to be believed, though, by this time next week, we're going to get a breath of fresh air.
I saw that.
And it might even last into the first Friday night of high school football.
That is unprecedented, as I can recall. But we're all strapped in, ready to go. A robust conversation yesterday we had about data centers, and it seems like Mississippi has been the beneficiary. Yes, I would describe it as being a beneficiary to receive significant investments. So if you look at AWS's announced investment of $10 billion, Compass over in Lauderdale County at 10, and now we got 6 in nearby Rankin County, Avio, building a facility there. Well, my quick math says that's $26 billion, but I've indicated before that I fully believe that AWS will invest significantly more than the $10 billion announced. So we're going to have several of those in the area, and they're natural concerns. Now, honestly, and I'll just point those out, the typical concerns. Hey, is this going to really burden the power grid and cause shortages of electricity? Is it going to cause our electrical rates to increase more than they would have? Is it going to drain our water supply? That's the other one you hear. Are they going to create pollution? How many jobs are they going to create? And are they sustainable long term? Are we looking at a situation where these buildings will be empty in the future one day? All legitimate concerns. And I may be missing a few. Honestly, though, I'm just going to be honest here. I just said honestly. My viewpoint on this, it feels like some of this is just fear-mongering that I equate to the climate change fear-mongering. I really do. There are certainly always challenges in any sort of endeavor like this, no doubt. And those have to be addressed. They have to be managed. But we're smart people, and we can do that. And we have the ability to do so. And then I started thinking about, well, what's the alternative? Is the alternative, let's think about it just from a Mississippi perspective. We just choose not to participate in this revolution, in this economic transformation? No, we don't want any of that. We just want to stay like we are forever, poor. Just be honest. We're the poorest state, 50th. Since the statistics have been collected and registered. Are we making progress? Absolutely. Major, massive, notable progress to a large extent because of these investments. And I always thought once AWS broke the ice and made the decision to move into Mississippi that others would follow. It would get the attention of others. It's the old McDonald's Wendy's model. Wait, McDonald's built a store right there. They did all the research for the market research for locating one right there. And then right across the street comes Wendy's and Burger King. Oh, this must be a pretty good place. And they let McDonald's invest all the money in determining the viability of the location. I'm exaggerating a little bit maybe, but...
Not really, because, I mean, that's kind of what sunk CVS and Walgreens and put them behind the eight ball financially is because they were both playing that game with each other.
It's true.
Oh, wait, there's a Walgreens on that corner? We got to put a CVS over there. Oh, there's a CVS on that corner? We got to put a Walgreens over there.
I agree. And in the case of these data centers, let's be honest, most of these big companies in the technology industry dismissed the idea, the notion that they would invest in significant assets and operations here in Mississippi. Mississippi, they don't do that. You know, they're still running around in bare feet and pumping water in the back. And they're wrong, of course. It's a misconception. And they get here and they say, wow. And the word spreads. And so, to my McDonald's Wendy's example, the Wendy's trailing was, well, geez, if it's good enough for McDonald's, it must be good enough for us. Same thing with the Walgreens and the CVS. And there are other examples. That's just a simple one. But it got other folks' attention. And it paid dividends for us. Just because Amazon saw the wisdom of making massive investments in here. But what I was going to say, Rhino, that intrigues me a bit, all these people that are negative and criticizing and complaining and naysayers and the fear-mongering, have they stopped to think that without data centers, they wouldn't be able to do that? Second-order thinking. So if you don't want data centers, unplug. Put your phone down. Shut down your computer. Shut down your house. Think right now. I'm asking everybody, how much in your house is connected to the web?
In fairness, if you are of a generation to where AI and data centers frighten you, you likely don't have many smart gadgets in your home.
Well, I read a report the other day that estimates within the next 5 years, the average American home will have 400 connected devices in it. Now, that sounds out there, but if you think about it, it's not, is it? When you think about connecting, Heck,
it may be on the upper bound in that time period.
Possibly, but it's still a lot. Just think the simple case of internet connected.
I'm just struggling to think of 400 things in my apartment that could connect.
I don't know that I have 400 a day.
I don't think I have 400 things in there that are capable of electronics, let alone connecting.
And maybe I get it. My home may not be representative of the average, but I think I have 6 locations in my house with full-blown surround sound systems, for example. Theater quality audio, video. All of that stuff's connected, right? I got one little tool on this phone I'm holding up that controls every bit of that. That's not that unusual anymore, though, to have completely wired and self-controlled systems like that.
Nowadays, it's mostly wireless.
That's what I mean. I'm wired. I'm still living in the old days. There's a wire back behind it all somewhere. You're right, but the connection between the end user device and the devices is wireless. They ultimately get wired together behind the scenes in the network. But it's not unusual to have control applications to do that. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
That's Jefferson Starship, 1979, Jane. And that's from the All Hit Request line. Appreciate that, Rhino. I'm trying to talk the house band into adding that to the set list. I don't know if anybody can handle the vocals, but the drums are fantastic. That's what I wanted. It's one of those songs where when you're playing the drums, you got to actually hit them hard. You can tell. You can listen to that and say, yeah, they're really pounding the skins there. And so it's just kind of fun. Just back to this discussion about, because I know it's top of mind with the big announcement in Rankin County from yesterday. Folks are understandably concerned, and their concerns are not taken lightly. I'm not dismissing them. There are mitigations that are necessary, certainly with respect to power, water, potential pollution. All of those are valid concerns. Some are not, though. Like, I saw one person just following some of the social media. I don't engage, but some of the social media on the various media sites that post the announcement. And one person says, well, we should have built a shopping center there. Well, there's nothing preventing anybody from building a shopping center. They could build a shopping center. There's plenty of land in Rankin County to build a shopping center on. Maybe there's a different...
I don't think it's zoned for that. Pretty sure it's zoned for industrial.
Well, okay. Makes sense to me as well. And that's an argument you'd have to have with the folks that do the zoning. But you know the point I'm making is that's not preventing the creation of shopping centers.
No.
Economic viability is preventing more shopping centers.
Well, and the erosion of a high-trust society.
It's totally true. But none of that's blocking or prohibiting that. And in fact, if you created the shopping center, guess what you got to have to pull that off? Data centers. You know exactly what I'm saying. Everyone involved in the planning, the construction, the operations of the stores. And there's a whole lot more tasks and endeavors involved as well. They all will rely on information, tools, and technology powered by data centers. So if you don't like them, unplug. By griping about them, you're using the very assets that you have contempt for. You're making them useful. You're causing the building of more. You're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's just mind-blowing. Wait, let me see. You're using Facebook to gripe about data centers, and you're making this exchange possible because of data centers. Facebook, gazillions of servers spread across in storage devices and networking equipment on all the other infrastructure spread across the globe, housed in data centers. Get off of it if you don't like. Do you think they know that? They think
the irony is they likely apply similar logic to different stances. Like a lot of the people that fear the progress of technology, that fear the building of data centers, that fear the AI renaissance, fear it because they don't fully understand it. The same way people use fear in relation to the Second Amendment and gun control because they don't understand it. Just listen to the gun control proponents talk about firearms. They are clueless. It's fear of the unknown, an unwillingness to educate yourself on that unknown and out of that fear.
And I want to be clear. I appreciate that it's a natural human reaction to be fearful of the unknown. It absolutely is. And are there some questions that haven't been asked? Perhaps. Perhaps there are and need to be addressed. But just to sort of put this behind lock and key and suppress it, this revolution, and say, just don't come here, don't do that, stop. Guys, it's a matter of national security. Because guess who's not stopping? China. Guess what China wants to do? Rule the United States. And they have a much better chance at achieving that goal if they achieve technology superiority. Not superiority in airplanes and ships. Nope. Technology superiority. That's what we have to be leery of. Gratefully, the president fully appreciates this. And he's totally behind this revolution that's occurring in this country. He also understands the necessity to ensure we have sufficient, adequate power and water. And that's why he has implemented regulations and he's appointed people in positions to promulgate regulations that address that issue. There are reports now from the International Energy Institute. I think it's the International Energy Agency, if I'm not mistaken. And they're showing that we're at an all-time record in terms of daily production of oil, about 13.1 barrels per day. We were just below 13 million when Biden left office, but there does appear to be a lot of investment in fracking and horizontal drilling. It is estimated there's some $55 trillion of oil beneath our feet that we couldn't get to the conventional approach, using the conventional approach. All this is made possible with human innovation and technology. And it's a wonderful thing. So the president and the administration understands we have got to achieve dominance and superiority in this technology world, and that means we've got to make sure that sufficient water, power, and other resources are available to achieve that goal. So there's a question on the C Spire text line. I know there isn't time today, but people are really freaked out about the water usage of data centers. I'm reading about horror stories from other states. Is there a way we can discuss this and maybe ease some fears? Sure. So first thing is, there's no doubt that in the early stages of the data center build-out with the cloud architecture and cloud as a more efficient, more agile, more appealing delivery and consumption model of IT workloads has exploded the last 12 years, I'd say. No doubt about that. AWS, Google, IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, the big players in that world. There's other smaller but still very large companies. Equinix is one, that Peak 10. These are all big data center operators. No doubt. And so they do use water for cooling. Servers generate a lot of heat. It's all the electronics and the circuitry produces heat. And water is used for cooling. The good news is, much the way we industrialize, and we use this as an example, Rhino, and if you don't think this is a valid one, help me out. But, we industrialize our country from an economic perspective to a great extent, the 60s, 70s, and there's no doubt we had a pollution problem. I think I've shared before the weekly reader we used to get when I was in grade school, and I remember one issue had like pictures of L.A., and the smog was so thick you couldn't see squat, right? There's no doubt. And most of that was produced by vehicles. We learned that, most of the air pollution comes from passenger vehicles. What about today? That doesn't even exist. Now, the left wants to tell you, oh, my God, it's terrible. But when's the last time you saw a photo of L.A.? And it's subject to holding in smog just because it's in a valley and there's often a sandwich between the coast and the mountain range, not a lot of wind, kind of traps it there. But I can't remember the last time I saw such a photo, because if it existed, they'd be plastering it. That's just one simple example. Or I remember back in those days just video and mainly still photos of just filthy rivers and just terrible stuff coming out of factories. Does that happen anymore? No. Same deal here. We're solving this problem.
Not in America. It happens every day in China.
That's a good point. Right.
And India.
Our pollution footprint is down dramatically when we started addressing it and realized, the planet's not sustainable. The left thinks, though, that we need no people. Right, that's the solution. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the SeaBird. Bring the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Daniel Sparks, the senator from Itawamba, Prentiss, and Tishomingo counties, joins us at 11:05. And then we've got Secretary of State Michael Watson on at 12:05. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. He's coming on. Before he comes on, he's coming on to discuss the president's push to essentially outlaw mail-in voting and also voting machines and how that might affect the state of Mississippi and really just voting across the country in general. But before we get to that, it's a valid question. There are concerns about data centers requiring lots of water. It's absolutely true to cool. They use water for cooling, and it turns out, and also traditional air cooling. But it turns out that they really only use the water cooling in the hottest months of the year. That much of the year, they just use traditional air cooling. And so no water is required. The AWS facility specifically, this question was raised. And by the way, because Amazon has a huge footprint of data centers and cooling them is a big deal, there are literally people in positions of management in the company that do nothing but manage cooling for the facilities. And in particular, focus on water as a resource to be used in the cooling process. And they've got, in fact, there's an individual that has been interviewed about the AWS project in Madison County and its water usage. And he is, his title, he's a water principal for Amazon Web Services. And he noted that the company has 3 goals for its water usage. And that's one of those goals is using recycled water for cooling. 24 of its facilities presently use recycled water. They're working to quadruple the number of facilities using recycled water by 2030, so that's a short 5 years. Says that they're 53% of the way toward meeting their water positive goal by 2030, up from 41% in 2023. So 41 to 53, and that was as the end of 24. And then also points out there are lots of efficiencies achieved in cooling technology in general and the use of water. Massive improvement, about 40% since 2021. So essentially producing more cool air in the environment in the facility using less water to do it. So what they're trying to do is convert all of their facilities to using wastewater. It turns out the facility here in Madison will, in fact, for cooling purposes, use wastewater from the Beatty's Bluff wastewater treatment plant, which sits along the Big Black River in Madison County. And they're building 13 miles of pipeline from the wastewater plant to the data center, and it will be treated en route so that it can be used in the cooling mechanically, right? The mechanical systems that do the cooling. So that's so that they don't have to draw potable water or construct any sort of new potable water supply. That makes perfect sense. And that's become the current trend. You know that, Rhino, in modern data center construction. Wasn't available a few short years ago, but again, human innovation, advances in technology. Hey, why don't we convert this wastewater for the purpose of cooling this equipment? Humans can't consume it, so let's use it in that respect. So it makes total sense. And again, the rest, except for the hot months of the year, most of the time in Mississippi, even though it is in the south and hot, in most months, the temperature of the air outside is sufficient to use as input to the cooling process. Water's not required to cool that air real quick before it emits it onto the floor to keep the equipment. He says that they expect to use 80 million gallons a year of water, this project does. So, again, there are some examples, no doubt, in some states, some areas where the water supply has been strained, although relative to the number of campuses and data centers there are, it's a very, very small percentage of it. The concern about electricity, I think we beat that up quite a bit. I think the good news there is I'm seeing, Rhino, more activity, more reports, more articles concerning nuclear. Right? You're seeing that. Like, for 10 years, we didn't say squat. 20, maybe. Nothing. Then all of a sudden, they woke up, somebody did somewhere and said, yeah, that stuff works pretty good. So
I would argue the decline's been longer than that.
Maybe you're right. I mean, Grand Gulf was built, the 90s? Early 90s, I think? And you just don't hear much about it since then. You certainly haven't heard any plans from any major utility in this country. But maybe that's because there hasn't been sufficient demand to justify it. That and just
it's
a lot
the
of
overburdensome regulations.
That's the other big problem. 10 years, right, to get a permit.
Minimum 10 years, closer to 20 for some projects. And it's a big investment. It's a long-term investment because you can make your investment back and make a pretty penny, but it's not on a time scale that's worth the risk, especially with a regulatory process that can span multiple presidencies.
Same situation with refineries. Same deal. You hear the big oil companies say, well, by the time you get all the permits done, get the shovels in the ground, get the thing built, I mean, it's 20 years, for us to get a payback. We just don't think we're down for that at this point. So we ship the dang oil overseas to refine, and it ships back for us to use. So the good news is we have a president and an administration that are working to streamline those processes so that there is more interest. And I do think that's why we're seeing more interest in not only drilling with the increase of production of oil in this country, but standing up nuclear power plants. I think I shared that I saw a piece a couple of weeks ago, Westinghouse, a name you don't hear much about these days. They're in the nuclear plant construction business, and they plan to build 7 in this country. So I think that's how we address it. But what we can't do is just run from it and bury our head in the sand and say, no, we're just not playing. We're not part of that. And again, it's I guess you could say it's our own fault. We have this voracious appetite for instant access to information all the time, everywhere. And that's only made possible with these data centers. There's no other way to do it. No other way to do it. And the volume of information that we produce. We're not talking about 50 years ago when I started in IT, when you could hold a bank's information, right, on a modern day thumb drive, because it was just all table-based character data. Well, most of the information today that we produce and consume is rich content that requires lots of space and lots of processing power. Hence, NVIDIA with the video games. And little did Jensen Huang know, these things are pretty good for artificial intelligence applications. But it turns out, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, when you're having to compute 1 million polygons a second to make Lara Croft look more like Lara Croft. That's a callback. It's a name in video games that's died out.
So now we're tacking on the next layer. It's the next rung in the ladder. It's the next facet of the evolution, and it's artificial intelligence. And we all know that, yeah, every time you throw a prompt out there, lots of cycles are being consumed that requires water and power and infrastructure and data centers. Quit using all. I can't tell you, it's so interesting to me, conversations I've had with lawyers, right, who are using it. Are there risks? Of course. We talked about a case of a firm that's based here in Mississippi that utilized some AI to produce some documents that a judge didn't like in Alabama and found out, yeah, you've got some erroneous citations in text here.
Well, it was more than erroneous. They were completely fabricated.
Well, the AI platform did, right? Without human proofreading, you probably could have got another AI tool to proofread it and point out the problems. But the point is, I'm having conversations with lawyers. I did at breakfast this morning. Just, man, this is allowing us to compete with the big firms. We've got capabilities now in our little firm we didn't have before because we basically got big firm resources at our fingertips. Guys, this is just what I experienced in the early 80s, mid-80s, when small businesses all of a sudden could buy a computer that they could afford. They could do mundane things like billing and writing checks and payroll and general ledgers. Before, unless you had $1 million and you were a big company, that was out of bounds. Now I can compete with the big guys. I got the same capabilities they do. That's what's so great about this. Second order thinking. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
on my way into North Carolina, staring up the road and pray to God I see headlights. I made it down the coast in 17 hours, picking me a bouquet of dogwood flowers, and I'm hoping for Raleigh I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us. CC in Sanatobia says, I don't fear technology that will obey. I fear technology thinking on its own that will not obey. How does that not make sense? No, it makes sense, and I fear bad guys getting a hold of nuclear weapons. Same deal. So does that mean we just should erase nuclear from the planet? Some people want to, yeah. And I say, aren't there positive benefits to that? Don't we have lots of military equipment that's powered with nuclear?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So what would we do without that? We'd be running gas out to them all the time or something.
Still be running diesel
right.
from submarines.
Right. So it's not like this unlimited, ubiquitous supply that sort of self-propagates there. And that's just one little example. There are gazillions of them. But I hear you, and it's a reasonable concern, CC points out. But again,
I just feel like the fear of technology thinking on its own that will not obey is a fear not borne out by the facts at hand.
I would agree with that too.
First off, we're nowhere near the level of technology to be thinking on its own. Even when we get there, the purpose of it is to be a tool to do what it's told, and if it doesn't do what it's told, it will likely be corrected. And the sci-fi how sorry I can't open the pod bay doors or Skynet and that is an infinitesimally tiny chance, if at all.
Correct. It's literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's a prolific example of that. That we as humans are in control, and this is why we have to manage it. We have to establish reasonable guardrails so that bad reality doesn't occur, doesn't invade. But that doesn't mean, well, let's just discontinue and abandon all efforts to advance this technology and integrate it into society. That's not a reason. It could be done with proper guardrails. It's the left saying you just can't fly on airplanes anymore because of climate change, right? We can't eat meat anymore because of climate change. You can't have big gulps. Their solution to everything is you can't have it. And I always think in terms of, well, why can't we have it in whatever the liabilities or the negative aspects, the drawbacks are? Let's address those. Let's use human innovation. Like the great example is, well, maybe we can cool these data centers with wastewater. And so what happens? We develop technology to draw the wastewater to cool the facility. That's just one little example. And that is constant throughout our history. This is what makes humans different as far as living organisms on the planet. God blessed us with that specialized skill that makes us the dominant living species on the planet. I think I told you my philosophy professor said monkeys are aware, but humans are aware of being aware. And that is true. Makes perfect sense. And that's what's going on here. So we can advance all this technology innovation in a way that serves society and benefits society. And let's address the drawbacks and the liabilities and the risks. We as humans can do that. And I think we're well on our way. I saw a report, it's pretty interesting, that Uber riders in the big metro areas where Uber operates Waymo self-driving cars, they're preferring those and canceling the human-powered cars, the human-driven cars. They're intrigued and have a great experience. Now, I'm sort of indifferent, honestly. But there are recent reports, like in the last 2 weeks, where Uber's reporting, we're seeing people that are preferring our Waymo robo-taxi. I'm telling the truth here, right? You've seen this.
Yeah, it's because it's predominantly younger people taking those Ubers, and younger people don't like talking to strangers as much as older generations did.
Completely agree, and that also makes a great point that I like to share all the time is we're sort of set in our ways. I admit, I'm older. I'm a baby boomer. But the next generations think about this totally different than we do, and they're going to be in charge. We're on our way out. That's just the fact. Cece says, I'm not saying we'll be in the Matrix tomorrow. I'm simply saying there's every reason to be cautious. And people in love with this are so gung-ho, they're throwing caution to the wind. I disagree. They're not throwing caution to the wind. I just went to a conference where I bet a third of the vendors there were orchestration and governance, and that's exactly what Cece's talking about.
They're terrified of AI saying something racist. Do you think they're going to let AI go rampant?
So true. Coming right back with Senator Daniel Sparks. Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Here again, oh Lord, haven't been home in a year. I hope she holds on a little longer.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We're pleased to welcome now Senator Daniel Sparks. He represents District 5 in Mississippi. That incorporates Itawamba, Prentiss, and Tishomingo counties. Serves as the chair of the Economic and Workforce Development Committee, vice chair of Judd B. Is that still current?
That is correct.
Okay. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be with you, Gerard. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So I always got to brag on your part of the world up there in northeast Mississippi. It is unique. It's scenic. It's beautiful, and especially the J.P. Coleman State Park and the big lake there is just breathtaking.
We're very fortunate. Obviously, you've got Pickwick there with J.P. Coleman, and then just down the way a bit, you've got Tishomingo State Park, and then you've got on the waterway, you've got Bay Springs. So we're blessed to have a lot of folks coming up, a lot of fishing tournaments, a lot of bass tournaments that you see. But it is a beautiful part of the world, and of course, I served on a Wildlife Fisheries and Parks Committee my first 4 years, and we're still working hard to try to get the investment into those parks to continue to maintain. Of course, it's the beauty piece that's the most impressive. But in today's world, if you've been talking about technology this morning, is you want to have it to where it's user-friendly. We built, I think it was about 30 RV pads at Tishomingo State Park recently that is more equipped to use the equipment you're using today, because the pop-up camper of the 70s and 80s, today people are wanting to roll in their RV, and we want them to come and stay a while.
Yeah, good point. Well, it's a beautiful part of the state. And I know that even though you guys are out of session, you're still doing a lot of work as a state senator outside between the sessions.
Well, I think coming from the background, and my dad and both grandfathers were preachers, I think it's almost revival time sometimes when we move across the state. I had a chance to speak to Create on Friday up in northeast Mississippi. That's 17 counties in north and northeast Mississippi. I have the opportunity to speak tomorrow at the Horizons Conference with Mississippi Accelerate. The SWIB board meets at 1. Chairman Zuber in the House has been kind enough to invite me to his PERS committee meeting tomorrow at 2. So I really do appreciate those opportunities. I've spoken at the Supervisors Convention this year with MDA, particularly with MEDC, getting to meet all our economic development partners from across the state. I think it was down in Biloxi last month maybe. And you learn those things, because a lot of times when you get ready to craft legislation, you may have an idea. It may not be a terrible idea, but if you do not vet it through people that it's going to impact, there's unintended consequences, or there's a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it. But the site development grants, things of that magnitude, the investment that we've made across the state of Mississippi for the last decade or more, I think that's part of the reason we've had the successes we've had, the announcements that we've had.
I agree. Paying dividends, the SDG grants, no doubt, and the governor's been a huge champion of that. He realizes that that's key, and as you know, in economic development, when a suitor is considering a site, they want it to be pretty close to the point where they can put a shovel in the ground and get the project underway. The speed to market is becoming a huge deciding factor, and having these sites ready to go and all resourced up with all the infrastructure assets that they need to get their business idea going is certainly critical.
You're very correct on that. And the opportunity we had to go the November, I think, before the session that the Marshall County project was announced, and to go to that site, put your feet on the ground, to listen to the presentation, see the issues they already had with ingress and egress at that industrial park. When you come down and then you're having to vote, particularly to spend tax dollars, that you recognize the value of it and that it is an investment. These are, there have been projects over the years that didn't work out, and for whatever reasons that were there, and we try to learn from those examples. But also, we expect partnership with industry, and the conversations you've had this morning even are that deal around the cost of utilities. Yes, we want you to come, and why are we having successes? I think it is because of good tax policy, regulatory policy, the availability of utilities. But there is quite a bit of discussion and concern, particularly around water and around electricity. Sure. TVA is, of course, a partner in North Mississippi that we rely on for energy costs, and that's one of the reasons we've had a lot of success in North Mississippi is the cost of energy. We've been able to be very competitive, but they are partnering, and I saw an article yesterday with Carios, I believe, starts with a K, and Google, and they're about to build, I think it's 50 meg generation, or at least that's the commitment TVA's made to buy from them, which provides the revenue stream to make the investment into nuclear. And I've heard Commissioner Brown with the Public Service Commissioner talk about, probably even with you on the show, about the modular nuclear, and had a chance to talk with Bill Rennick with TVA at the meeting Friday, and he was able to express some of the investment they're making. So TVA is leading the way, and we want to make sure that we replicate, because the first guy to build it, the cost is great.
No doubt.
But they get better and they get more efficient, and that's what we need.
Yeah, so it's Google and Carios that did an agreement to essentially increase the amount of nuclear power across the country, and much of that's needed to power their data centers and their efforts as well. But yeah, TVA I think is going to buy like 50 megawatts from them, is the way it works. So they're incorporating more nuclear into the grid that they operate. That's the main thing the TVA is. So.
And we have to build capacity, but one of the things with the modular nuclear or any kind of nuclear is you can have all the fancy cars in the world, but if you have no road or interstate to drive them on, you're in trouble. So it's transmission also. So the more you can build on-site or near-site of large energy users, whether it's a manufacturing facility or whether it's a data center, that's part of the benefit too, is that you are not having to grow transmission.
Yeah, they say that that particular reactor will produce enough electricity to power 36,000 homes, but the electricity that but they've got that covered. So this will power Google's data centers in Montgomery County, Tennessee, and Jackson County, Alabama. So a great collaborative effort there between the consumer of the electricity and the provider of it, and a third party that's big time into standing up these nuclear power plants. So I believe that's the future. The good news, Senator, in our state, I think our legislature is supportive of nuclear energy. Our Public Service Commission, I've interviewed them as well, Chris Brown and DeKeither Stamps of late. They seem to be on board. So the sky's open, and I think our power companies, Mississippi Power, TVA, Entergy, they're all supportive of that as well. So I think that bodes well for us.
It does, and we have a federal administration at this time that is willing to look at it. And one of the most difficult things, and I made this comment even before I knew Mr. Rennick was in the room or had noticed he was in the room, is that, TVA has unique circumstances because of, from administration to administration and the board appointments, they have some challenges that Mississippi Power or Entergy maybe do not face. Yeah. And so I'm very encouraged, but, I don't want to see work done in this administration that, again, is forward-looking, whether it's the permitting process, getting the technology right. I don't want to come back and see us take a step backwards because the needs are growing, not receding.
Well, and you're right, and the governor, of course, has created this commission that is for the purpose of just making sure that we're preparing for the energy needs of our future. And I think he's appointed a cross-section of subject matter expertise to serve on that committee. The president has made it very clear he understands the need as well, and he's got cabinet secretaries that run these various agencies that are trying to strip down some of this onerous permitting and regulations that honestly are stifling the growth of energy in this country.
That's correct. And we want the resources. We need the resources again. And I think the governor, with the Power Play Initiative and others, is forward-looking. And to his credit, it is forward-looking past the term of his administration. And I think you measure leadership and you measure people's impact, not just by what they do when they're in the office, but how they prepare the state or the city or the county or the nation for the future, because you have today's issues, from a constituent services side. If you're a local elected official, you have people who have very basic and important needs from a administration or agency standpoint, and you're able to step in and do that. Or you handle a law that's coming up, but more impactful is what you do that's going to impact future generations and set yourself up for success. And some of the things we've been able to do the last couple of years is not any work I've done. It's been the work that was done before I got there, and we want to build on it and add to it.
That's a good point. Appreciate you pointing that out as well. We got Senator Daniel Sparks in the Element Wealth studio. We come back and we'll dig into stuff you guys may be talking about when you gather again under the Capitol here pretty soon, under the dome in the Capitol pretty soon. Daniel Sparks is a senator from Northeast Mississippi. We're coming right back with more with the senator. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
So before we continue our discussion with the senator here, CC, who we've had a good exchange this morning, CC in Senatobia, he says, no, I'm saying that AI will go rampant on its own. No doubt. That's a concern. Rhino, I'm kind of with you. I think that's a little overblown, honestly. But there are always risks.
Look at the way AI is powered. Until we have self-serving, really small nuclear modular power production, the simplest answer is unplug it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Kill the power to the machine, and it's no longer going rampant.
In fact, Jeffrey Hinton, who's considered the godfather of AI, who spoke last week at the conference, he said the same thing. And he expressed his concerns about that. And hell, he was one of the main inventors of all this stuff. there's always a risk associated with anything that's innovative, that's new, that's powerful like this.
We're just nowhere near the power density required for that to even be a possibility.
And I agree, but we as humans can still prevent that possibility. We still have the power, and that's why it's important for, honestly, for government and businesses as well, at all levels, to be responsible. It's all about using this power responsibly and ethically. And so I think that people in this country realize that. What bothers me is that folks that are across the pond there that don't think as highly of our country, they put it to use in a nefarious way. Same thing with nuclear weapons falling into the hands of radicals in Iran. Same thing. Why the president's been so insistent on, we're not going to let you do that. So he blew the thing up, honestly. I didn't mean to go off track there, Senator, but I want to address that while he's Senate from CC. And I appreciate his concerns. You guys know that as well in the legislature. And you know what happened this past year? A bunch of members of the House and Senate introduced various pieces of legislation. It was kind of a patchwork to regulate artificial intelligence at the state level. And I think the legislature and the governor were wise to say, let's step back for a minute here before we go do something that would stifle or stymie innovation or even create more problems if we pass laws without really thinking through it. And they created this task force. I'm honored, I'm privileged, blessed to be appointed to it, along with some other smart people in our state. And that's how we're going to handle this.
Well, and I think that's excellent. What we need to do is engage with people that understand the issue. And God bless the young people that are going to come into this space, particularly as it relates to the Department of Defense, protecting our financial information. I mean, the attacks that will come are not going to be so much from, planes and ships and things of that nature. This is where it's at. And I'll have to admit, I'm kind of at the tipping point. I'm at that age where I had an Atari 2600. So I remember the wood grain and playing Space Invaders with my brother, and it was amazing technology. But I also am the type guy that wants Microsoft OneDrive to stop trying to update me because I just want to get into Excel or Word and write my letter, and no, I do not want your help. But I realize that there is value, and in one of these days I'll capture where that value is. But right now, it's causing me a little bit of heartburn.
Is it Copilot? The Copilot's bugging you?
I'm like, I don't need a Copilot, brother. I'm writing this letter. So, but yes, I can see the concern, especially generation to generation.
Yeah.
But this young generation is going to lead, and sometimes that's the hardest thing to do in leadership, is let new leadership lead in an area where you don't have expertise.
Yeah. So the hope is we have our first meeting coming up at the end of September up at Mississippi State, our task force. And then I just got an email about scheduling a second one. So maybe we'll have 2 to 3 meetings before the session gets underway, and we'll have some information to share with the legislature as a guide, for lawmakers to figure out how to handle this. I'm honestly glad that the provision that I was unhappy about, introduced by Senator Ted Cruz in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which would have prohibited states from implementing any regulations for 10 years, a moratorium on that. I'm glad they got stripped out in the Senate. Senator Marsha Blackburn, as a matter of fact, who fought that. Thought that was a bad idea. And, of course, her state's one that has already implemented some regulations. They've got lots of performing artists, of course, in the Nashville area. And protecting their likeness and their proprietary person, if you will, their voice, is important because that's a candidate for AI to replicate and to produce income from. And they're entitled to protect that personal asset. That's just one example of a negative use of it. But nonetheless, we now at the state level do have the power, the runway to take action as we see fit here in the state of Mississippi.
That's correct. And one of the things, and I'll go back to the voice, we have 2 of the most distinguished voices in the country in the late James Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Their voice is so recognizable in the value it has. And Senator Bradford Blackman actually dropped a bill for a couple of years, which I supported because I'm thinking about now the estate of James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman. They have built value, and we should never take their value away from them or their family. It should go to where they want it to go. So, yes, there are things out there that we need to look at, but certainly with the understanding.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so I'm glad that The path has been cleared for the states to take action. I just get nervous when the federal government tries to do a one-size-fits-all solution, and I'm a little disappointed in Senator Cruz for introducing that. That seems to be inconsistent with his typical values. I get it. He's concerned that this thing's going to get away from us before we have a chance to do anything about it, but that's where we are. Let's turn our attention to legislative matters here at home. You, as a lawmaker in the state Senate, we had an interesting session in 2025. I'll describe it that way. Maybe some unfinished business on both sides that you guys will tackle when you get back under the dome in 26. What's on your mind there?
One of the biggest things that we'll continue to look at is workforce, which, of course, being the chair of economic workforce development, working with MDA, working with Accelerate Mississippi to try to continue to focus on high-wage, high-demand jobs, especially in this cutting-edge technology space. That's a major focus. And also, we had the One Door Policy Task Force this year, which I'm co-chairing with Chairman Donnie Bell from the House, is we're trying to make sure that government is operating in a manner that actually facilitates success, not perpetuates reliance. That's the big thing. If somebody walks in and says, I need help, whether it's SNAP benefits, whether it's Medicaid eligibility, whatever it may be, if we're not careful, we end up just checking the boxes of do you qualify. We do not dig behind to say, why are you in this condition and position, and what can we do to help you get to self-reliance? And we're dealing mostly with executive agencies. I appreciate the encouragement from the governor's office in relation to what we're trying to do, and have some synergy. Yeah. That if someone comes in seeking a benefit, that we do not just judge whether they qualify, put them on it until it expires, but actually say, is there potential to do better? Some people are in circumstances in life, whether it's disabilities, whether it's other factors, that there is reliance that's there, and we want to help those that cannot help themselves. But we do not want to create a system that them being good economic actors say, well, there's a benefits cliff out here. I'm getting these amount of benefits. You want me to excel to the next level, but if I excel in your eyes to the next level of wage, I actually lose total income to the household. Well, we expect them to be good economic actors, but we have to build a system that does not perpetuate that actually gives them the opportunity to rise out of it.
Okay, good. That's good points. The Medicaid program, you mentioned that, is one that received lots of reforms in the big, beautiful bill at the federal level. Most of those provisions really don't apply to the state of Mississippi because they're applicable to the expansion coverage group, which we didn't do here in Mississippi. Have you guys talked about that? Are there some concerns, budgetary concerns there?
I think the budgetary concerns were evident at the end of the session when the Senate's position was we need to wait and see what is coming out of the federal government, because it was a lot of change. It was a lot to absorb. And we do have rainy day funds. We do have CapEx monies that's out there. And, yes, we want to invest those or return those or do what is proper with those. But you have to have a realization that if you expect your expenses to go up in the future, you either have to have money to pay for that or you have to cut those expenses. And what I hope we can do is have more efficiency in the core functions of government. It's not the poor functions of government, it's the core functions. And sometimes we do a poor job in doing those, but we're going to have to do more with less. Part of that is innovation and technology. That's how you do it. So the government's slow to roll to that, but we've got to embrace it and try to work toward it.
You got to go? You can hang around.
I'd love to hang around.
All right, we got Senator Daniel Sparks in the Element Wealth studio. We'll continue this discussion. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
From the Seabird Paint.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Senator Daniel Sparks. All right, so, Senator, you guys finished out the session this past year, got this big tax reform bill through. A lot of controversy surrounding that legislation with a drafting error, but nonetheless, I call it an error. I don't think that was what was intended on the Senate side, to implement some so-called triggers that the state would need to achieve before further reductions could be made to the state income tax in increments over a period of time. So, unfortunately, that, at least from the Senate's perspective, that went down with this decimal point out of place. And that's what it is. I'm just going to ask you straight up, are you concerned that down the road we may have a budgetary problem in state government simply because we're eliminating a considerable amount of income from the income tax? I don't really see too much in the way of reducing expenses, spending certainly not sufficient to offset the loss of that revenue. I'm sort of feeling like 4 or 5 years down the road, you guys may have to make some tough decisions. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the bill itself tracks what we did in 22, because for the next 4 years we'll go from 4 to 3, very much like we went from 5 to 4.
Yeah,
and I think that from the Senate standpoint, there was no real pushback on elimination. It was just, how do you get there? And of course, the plans that were being put out there, we're not going to get there any faster than eliminating a point a year, really. Yeah. Anyway. But there is obviously concern when you eliminate $1.8 to $2 billion of a $7.2 to $7.6 billion revenue stream.
Yeah.
That's a big number. I think the continued growth that we see across the state, the investment that we're seeing, we're definitely going to see an offset in that. There's some offset in that people are going to spend more money. I get that. But I do want us to focus on accountabilities and efficiencies, and I preach this over and over again. On the workforce side, it's return on investment. So we do need to be better as a state in looking at where we are spending and what's happening. The other thing in that bill, and the focus that was on the decimal point, was what was lost in that is that there's a first trigger, and that first trigger is that you have a full rainy day fund. So if it comes to the point that the government has a shortfall, it will be up particularly to the executive branch at that point, whether they're going to dip into the rainy day fund. And if they dip into the rainy day fund, that's a sign that you've had to dip into your savings, that you're not meeting the criteria. The trigger will not go into effect the next year. So
that's a good point.
I told folks I'm not overly concerned about the trigger situation. I think Chairman Harkins explained it as clear as a bell. I think it was understood. What ultimately happened, and that's in the rearview mirror, and we'll move forward.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. I think in terms of, and look, you know me, I'm for eliminating the income tax. I always felt like that could be done in an expeditious and efficient manner if we raise money elsewhere, and that's mainly at the state level from sales taxes, which is our primary revenue generation source. It's about 38% last I checked of total revenue. Sales income taxes are about 27%. So we're going to have to spend a whole lot more money as Mississippians to generate sufficient sales taxes to offset the income tax loss.
That's right. And we've spent general fund dollars on things that were maybe specific, and that was one piece of the bill with the infrastructure piece that, we just had a static gas tax that had been in place for almost 40 years. And seeing that we did that, and I spoke with Hal Miller with the Trucking Association recently, and, they were appreciative that we phased it in so that their industry could absorb, because they have contracts. But that's generating millions and millions more dollars that will go into maintaining our roads. We still have to deal with capacity. We've not bonded in years. We've paid off over $1 billion in bond indebtedness. So, we forget how government was run prior to 2020, it seems like, is that you borrowed money for major investment, just like you do in your own business and your own home, but you don't want to borrow money for one-time pet projects. And so with what we've done with infrastructure, that's a stream of revenue that is dedicated, that is not going to have to come out of the general fund for maintenance. So there are some major $1 million pieces, hundreds of $1 million pieces that will impact what you're expensing in the future.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. So you got some revenue because you guys have been cutting checks to transportation the last couple of years, right?
That's correct. Even on the maintenance side, of course, ARPA skewed everything.
Yeah.
So, we're getting a year or two away, and that was the other thing with income tax elimination. We've been living high on the hog, if you will, on ARPA dollars and federal dollars that we know are being cut. Is that hopefully we make good investments. I think the infrastructure piece where we use cities and counties as an opportunity to match them 1-to-1 or even 2-to-1 in the smaller municipalities. In my district, I just want to thank my mayors and boards of aldermen because they took advantage of that. In Belmont, they got $400,000 of their direct money from the federal government. Lieutenant Governor wanted to do a match program. They did 2-to-1 for anybody that received less than $1 million. They did $1.2 million worth of water and sewer work that did not come out of the Belmont municipal budget.
Yeah, their standard budget.
And so they were able to make future investments, so they're not going to have to spend that dollar. So I think that was a big good thing that we did, and a lot of people across the state did.
Gotcha.
So that's part of the focus. But yes, it's going to get serious as we move forward. But as a conservative, we want to do more with less, and we do want to cut. And sometimes the only way to cut spending is to cut off the waterfall of money that's coming in that people that overspend.
Right. Yeah, get it. And that's certainly coming. And that was a shot in the arm that was received from the federal government. Unfortunately, they just tacked onto our debt. So that's the downside of that. All right, let's talk about the public employees retirement system. You mentioned that you're scheduled to attend an event that I guess was scheduled by Representative Hank Zuber. He, of course, chairs the State Affairs, I think, committee over there in the House. So this would be of interest to him. What's going on there? A lot of feedback on the Tier 5 that you were instrumental in getting through the legislature this year.
Yes, the Tier 5, of course, it goes into effect March 1st of 2026. And again, it does nothing to any prior tiers, Tier 1 through 4. Their benefits are locked, service credits, et cetera, guaranteed. It was something the PERS board had asked for the last couple of years. The plan that was put together was presented to them. They voted 8-1 to endorse or at least say, yeah, that's the plan. We've had feedback, particularly from the law enforcement community. I've had meetings one-on-one. We'll have more of those meetings to try to address specific issues they have with the years of service. We did put into the plan, and people ask me, what did you change from what the PERS board voted on? I changed two things, and the Lieutenant Governor went in and met with him after I'd read the draft. And one was that it removed military service credit. We reinstituted 4 years active duty military service credit. I think that's appropriate. I think it's proper. And in the law enforcement community, 30 to 40% of their hires come out of the military. So that's a benefit that is unique to them that will allow, a 31-year retirement, if you will. And then the second piece that I put back in, first of all, the military service credit I think was very important. The second is there was no term of years in the draft that came through PERS.
Okay.
I feel like, and I felt like, and I said to the Lieutenant Governor, and he agreed, that if someone has given 35 years to the state, if they went to work for MDOT at 18, 19 years of age, if they want to retire after giving 35 years, it shouldn't be an age-driven thing. Because when you talk about a retirement system, retirement to me is ceasing work. Now, that may be a odd way to look at retirement, but my dad's 79, still going strong, and I'm not sure he wouldn't start a new business tomorrow. It's just kind of in the DNA. But when you talk about retirement, a lot of what is happening is people in their 40s or 50s, people younger than me, are, quote, retiring. And they're beginning their check to be drawn, which is fine.
Yeah.
But then they're having to go out and get a job because they have to have benefits. One of the things we want to do this year is a return-to-work policy that is less cumbersome. We have this 25% of your high 4 or 50% work, 50% pay. If people want to work, and they're under the rules of Tier 1 through 4, so if they want to retire, that's their right to retire and begin that check and begin that part of their life. But why would we keep them from coming back with that level of expertise at some level at a local municipality or school district or law enforcement? So that is one key piece for me this year, is a cleaner, simpler return-to-work policy that is positive impact to PERS, but it's positive impact to the employee, and most of all, it's positive impact to the people that they serve. The other piece is funding. Last year, there was commentary there was not a dedicated funding source. Well, we made amendments and adjustments that do generate hundreds of millions of dollars with things that we did. I want to see a lump sum. I want to see an annual amount go in. I'd like to see a large lump sum because then we get the growth off of it. So putting in $1 billion over 10 years, $100 million a year would be great.
Yeah.
But better would be putting in $500 million in year one and $50 million for the next 10 years. So that's a
put that money to work. Right.
That's right. It'd be growing, and by the time you got to year 10, your growth would be hundreds of millions of dollars more. But the good thing is, investment returns have been good. We were close to 11%.
Yeah, the treasurer talked about
the anticipated rate 7%. We keep doing that, we're going to make positive impact. But everything we've done is a positive impact to the system to honor the obligation that we have to all these employees today and in the future.
Senator Daniel Sparks has been our guest. Thanks for coming in, as always, Senator.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're coming right back.
Polly up a Mississippi. It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
2, 3, 4.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We appreciate Senator Daniel Sparks for coming in and visiting with us today. We covered a lot of ground there. We're going to be back under that dome pretty soon, Rhino, and you and me will be reading them bills, trying to sort through it all. So just pivoting a bit. The illegal alien truck driver who killed 3 people. You've seen the video, no doubt, of this individual behind the wheel. Killed 3 people, I think in Florida, right? If I'm not mistaken. Was it Florida?
Well, that's one example, yeah. There have been multiple examples that have shown up on social media in the last 24 to 48 hours.
People are paying attention to it because of this incident, I would say. So it turns out he failed an English language assessment, getting 2 out of 12 answers correct, only identifying 1 of 4 highway traffic signs that the states of Washington and California issued this individual a commercial driver's license despite not being eligible for it. Authorities in New Mexico also failed to issue the English language assessment test when he was stopped for speeding. And then he kills people, innocent Americans. So I got curious about this. It turns out there are 19 states, 19 in this country, that issue driver's licenses to illegals. I would like to see the president pull all federal funding of all categories to every one of those states until they stop that practice. And that may mean something as radical, although to me it's not radical, of revoking licenses already issued to those who either fail the test or that you know can't read or write the English language. You can't drive a vehicle. That's just common sense. I know that ain't so common, right, as you like to say. 19 states will issue driver's licenses to illegals. Cut the funding now is what I would recommend and like to see happen until they fix that problem. We already see numerous states, cities, Boston, Mayor Michelle Wu, you've seen that? She's basically...
Is it Michelle or Brianna?
I think it's Michelle in Boston.
Who am I thinking of?
I'm not sure. I know there's somebody named Brianna. I'm pretty sure it's Michelle
Wu. She's never mind.
Michelle Wu, right?
Yeah, it's Michelle.
Okay, so she's holding press conferences where she's saying, we're going to maintain our sanctuary city. We don't care what the federal government says and what the president's orders say. That's insanity. That's not what I would like to say because I can't say it on the air. Starts with horse, fill in the blanks. You see this video. I mean, she's having the media show up. She's boasting about this. We're defying it. And there are other cities as well in this country that are just saying, yeah, we're going to be sanctuary cities. We're not deporting anyone. We're not going to cooperate with ICE. We're just going to continue to conduct our business as we see fit here, except they're breaking federal law. And it is superior to your little local crap. Oh, man. That's just so disturbing to see this sort of stuff. And it's amazing to me that the left continues to lean into this. Didn't they learn anything? The answer is no, they didn't. I know that's what you're thinking. But she's saying we won't comply with Fed's order to dismantle sanctuary protections. And here's what really grinds your gears. The Boston Herald. I typically read the Boston Globe every day, but it got me curious, and I went to the Boston Herald, and they've got an article about this. The mayor there saying we're going to defy the president's order. And there's a photo at the headline, under the headline of the article, that shows the mayor at a podium and a big crowd behind her. And so now, in this sort of twisted effort to shame Christians, there's an individual behind her, prominently placed, of course, holding up a sign that says, "Welcome the stranger, Matt 2535." And then another one off to her left shoulder that says, it's from the ACLU. This is so like the ACLU. Dissent is patriotic. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. Welcome the stranger. I don't think that's what Jesus meant by that. He didn't mean open your dang borders up. I don't think Jesus opposes having national sovereignty. We're coming right back with Secretary of State Michael Watson.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3 of Middays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Hump Day.
It's our pleasure to welcome now the Secretary of State of the great state of Mississippi. That would be Secretary Michael Watson. Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Man, I am well. I'm traveling in 90 different directions here at the office today, but glad to have some moments with you, and I look forward to talking a little bit.
You bet. So, I sent you a note the other day. I'm sure you caught on. I know you were inundated with the news coming out of Washington that the president seeks to eliminate mail-in voting and use of voting machines in this country. Now, we could get off into a tangent about whether or not a president has the authority to issue such an order and whether or not it would be binding and stand up to the test of the Constitution, all that sort of stuff. But I think it does at least warrant a conversation with you as the person who oversees elections in the state of Mississippi. That's, of course, a responsibility of our Secretary of State. First, I'd ask you, Mr. Secretary, to just share with our audience what is available in Mississippi from a mail-in voting perspective, how that works.
Yeah, so Mississippi is very limited when it comes to mail-in voting. you have 4 reasons that you can use to vote by mail. And I think one of the important things to point out is less than 3% on average of our returns come through mail. So it's very limited, very secure here in Mississippi. And, when you sit down at groups like our Old Man Coffee Club, when I'm talking to our guys in the community down there, and they see something like this that comes from the president, it catches attention. And they want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to follow President Trump's lead. And I think the important thing here is we got to take this thing apart. Did that absentee or did the vote by mail mean these states like Oregon and others who have all vote by mail? Like that's how you vote by mail. Or did he mean, hey, look, in states like Mississippi where it's very limited, less than 3% of the turnout is by mail, did he mean that? When you look at this, it's the machine piece. Did he mean these DRE machines that most states have now gotten rid of, or did he mean the optical scanners that actually count the paper ballots? So we're still a little bit kind of in flux around here, trying to figure out what exactly did he mean with that. I've been on the phone with the White House and several of their members there trying to let's dig through this. And what I've been really encouraged about, Gerard, is they have assured us the states will have the opportunity to have some input as this moves forward. Okay.
Well, yeah, appreciate that overview. So, and I'll ask you to correct me if I misstate this, but I think there's a clear distinction, and I had these same questions virtually that you did when you saw the order, because there are lots of details and nuances to that. But there's a distinction between, you mentioned Oregon and I can't remember the other state, and there are a handful. They actually send ballots out, right? They mail ballots to everyone who is registered on the rolls. That's what really opens up the possibility of fraud, because, those end up in random hands, and there are people just ballot harvesting stuff that run around and collect all these ballots and then just go fill them out and get signatures and send them in. That's different than what we have here in Mississippi, where if you want to vote by mail, you have to act. You have to be proactive. You have to initiate it. You have to request a ballot, and you also have to sign an affidavit attesting as to why you need to do this. So is that an accurate description of that?
I think it is, and you hit on something that we've actually talked about several years ago on the show. Yeah, when we talked about making sure we have clean voter rolls, and why is that so important? It's so important because if you look at these states that have universal vote by mail, which is what the president, I hope, is talking about, that opens up the ability for folks to take advantage of the situation, and we don't need that.
Yeah, we just dump ballots out, put them in the mail. We don't even honestly know where they're going because, the rolls aren't accurate, and they just end up, honestly, could end up in the hands of a person related to a deceased voter that's on the voter rolls. And we don't honestly want them voting. They're not supposed to be voting. It could even be a minor who's not registered to vote. It just votes on their behalf because a ballot landed in their mailbox.
And it happens, we know. I don't know if I told you this or not, but we had a circuit clerk actually receive an absentee ballot for a passed away relative. Pretty funny that a circuit clerk was the one that got it. But so, yeah, it happens. This was from Michigan, by the way. So they send them all over the country.
Oh, my God. Well, so I don't know that our system here is that subject to voter fraud. I feel like it's pretty rock solid. The small percentages you mentioned of folks that do vote by mail, and you have to request that. And we also want to accommodate members of our armed services that are stationed outside of the state. We have a population who are infirmed, can't get to the ballots. We want to accommodate them. They have the right to vote. But let's do it in a secure and responsible way. That doesn't mean just dumping ballots out on the streets, which is what some of these states do. That's what leads to all the dang fraud. And then we have these machines. Go ahead.
The last couple of days we've seen on social media these pictures of folks dumping ballots into mailboxes. That's what it leads to. And that's, I think, what the president's probably aimed at. And so we look forward to working with him. And again, his focus on election integrity has been phenomenal, and we all cheer that on. We just want to make sure that there's a clear line here of what the Constitution allows and speaks to with elections. The states are the ones that should act, and in limited situations, it's Congress. So we just got to be careful that these executive orders are more strong encouragement as opposed to you will do this. And that's what we're working on with the president.
Well, I think you would agree. We don't want the possibility of a future president being in place that could also issue an executive order that would not only reverse all that, they may seek to sign an order that says everybody's going to do this wide open mail-in voting. We don't want that either. We want to reserve the right to control that right at the states. They want.
Yeah, and think about.
Go ahead.
We'll take that one step further, Gerard. Think about a hard and fast Democrat gets elected president, and not to get political here, but just an example. And they say, you know what, I don't like voter ID. So we're going to issue an executive order that says to the states that have voter ID, we're going to withdraw funding for XYZ. This thing goes both ways. And I think that's been our core message, both Republicans and Democrats. There's a reason why the Constitution limits the authority of who can work in these elections. And the states are the ones that should drive these conversations and make these decisions. Now, sometimes, again, when I go to Old Man Coffee Club, that's a hard conversation to have because all they want to hear is, hey, President Trump said it, we better be doing it. I get that, but there are also us conservatives who understand federalism and how the Constitution limits powers and authorities, and we need to make sure that we're acting by that. So we've got to be conservatives no matter who's in the White House, and I think that's been a piece that we're trying to work on really hard.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Amen. And I understand, and it's no disrespect to anyone, but and like you said, we're glad the president is highlighting that this is an issue because certainly the prior president totally dismissed it. In fact, his entire party totally dismissed it. No, there's something to it.
Right.
It's probably somewhere in the middle between what folks believe as far as the level of election integrity abuse. But we still need to make sure that the right people are the ones who are seated in office when the election's over. That's
right.
That's the goal. I really think our systems in Mississippi are fairly solid. You and I have talked about this as our voter rolls, and I know you've worked fairly relentlessly to get the authority to act on that and to require our circuit clerks clean up these dang voter rolls. It's a problem, and that's where it starts. That's what opens up the possibility of election fraud, right?
That is foundational. If you've got bad voter records registration wise, it's hard to have a good election. And so I think that's the key that we focused on from day one. And I really appreciate our circuit clerks and our commissioners. The commissioners have the heavy work when it comes to cleaning our voter rolls. You've talked about, and we've talked about before, our Experian work that we've been doing with the commercial data that's now available. And we sent out north of 200,000 names on our rolls here in the last month or so to our elections commissioners, things that have been possibly missed with the national change of address forms that aren't very accurate. And we know the census has reported roughly 10 to 12% of people move every year. So we got to catch up on some of those things. But again, we're using every tool that we can use, rightfully so legally, to make sure that we've got clean voter rolls. So I just want to say a big thank you to our commissioners who we've put a lot on their shoulders, and they're responding accordingly.
Yeah, well, good. And then the machines we use here, we may get caught against a break. We can continue on the other side. There's a difference between machines, you mentioned it, the style that you actually use to cast your ballot as opposed to counting, tabulating your paper ballot, right?
Right. We were on the phone yesterday with one of the policy folks at the White House, and I wanted to walk him through these old school DRE machines that I think there's only one state that has those statewide still.
Okay.
And they're trying to change that. Mississippi does not have those anymore.
Can you hang around? I want to get an update from the meeting you just had. Right?
Let's do it.
Okay. We got Secretary of State Michael Watson.
Need to move heavy.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Mississippi Secretary of State Michael Watson. So you just had an event down there on the coast, right, convening numerous secretaries of state. Tell us what that was all about. And my understanding is maybe you were elected to a position as part of that group. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So we had the trifecta last week, and, 2 weeks ago, excuse me. So 2 years ago, we actually got a chance to bid on the National Association of Secretaries of State summer conference. And so I was excited to bring them to Mississippi. So we've been planning this for 2 years. My team did an outstanding job. I mean, first class, you name it, it was here. And we've gotten so many comments back about we loved our time in Mississippi. So Mississippi showed out. But the trifecta, we had the conference, so we were the conference host. Number two, we won the Ideas Award again. So this is our second one in 3 years. And the Ideas Award is basically what is the most impressive new idea for secretaries across the country. And we submitted our ambassador program. And so our ambassador program was selected by the other 40-something secretaries as the Idea of the Year award. So we're proud of that. And then lastly, on the last day, I was elected the incoming or now current president of the National Association. So you can imagine with that tweet that went out on Monday, my phone has been a little crazy the last 2 days from both sides of the aisle, trying to figure out what exactly we need to do with this and in a responsible way. So it's been fun. But, really proud of our team last week. They did a great job.
That's awesome, and I'm sure they did. That's awesome, and congratulations. And welcome the Secretaries of State to Mississippi, and congratulations to you on being elected to that role with the association. What kind of feedback did you get from them, many of whom I assume have never been to the great state of Mississippi? What sort of feedback did you get there?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think the majority of them had never been, and so they loved it. We introduced them to our musical culture, as you can imagine. We had the first night was Elvis night, and so the host of the event actually got the winner of the Elvis impersonation contest from Las Vegas to come in and do a deal with them. So that was fun. And then the next night we had the 14-year-old. Blues superstar. I'm blanking on his name, John White. I can't remember the middle name, but incredible. And we had him at the Ground Zero there in Biloxi. Yeah. And then the last night we hosted an event at the aquarium, and most of them had never been to an aquarium, so they were blown away by that. Got to take their pictures with penguins and play with alligators and you name it. But it was great, and the food, the hospitality. We continued to hear about how nice the people were. As we all know, you get somebody to Mississippi, they don't want to leave.
That's right.
We put on a great show.
Well, that's awesome. And so what was the process of, I guess, bidding and then being selected to host this event? What was that all about? You said 2 years you guys been working on that, right?
Yeah. So we had to submit our package and work very closely with our tourism groups along the coast. Visit Mississippi and others did a great job with that, putting together kind of what we would look at as far as our bid, the types of entertainment we could offer, our pricing with hotels, meeting space, you name it. All that goes into one big package there. And so we were up against San Diego, California to host, and we won.
That's awesome.
And so I was very proud of our presentation. And then again, I think we delivered. I know we delivered, over-delivered, as a matter of fact. I've gotten texts from secretaries all across the country. Man, we love the coast. That was so fun.
That's awesome.
Thank you for hosting us. So, yeah, man, proud of it.
What were some of the topics that were discussed at the event, Mr. Secretary?
So glad you asked that. We talked a lot about cybersecurity, as you well know, in that space. Very important topic. We talked about there's some issues we're working on now with the DOJ. As a matter of fact, while I was looking over to my side, I'm actually typing a response to the DOJ right now.
Okay.
So we've got some issues with that, with our voter rolls, and some things that they're asking questions about across the country. We talked a lot about just elections in general, and the summer meeting is really good. It's an opportunity for all the states to come together, talk about what's happening in their states. what are we seeing across the board? Is there something that's a common problem for all of us? How can we put our minds together? The 50 Laboratories of Freedom is really what this thing's all about. In the summer conference, in the winter conference we have, it's more federally charged there. But love the summer conference because you hear actually what's going on the ground in each state from our secretaries. So we get the chance to meet together. There's 2 secretary-only meetings where we close the door and we try to hash some things out. And those were good meetings this year. Very informative, a little bit tense, but not too bad. And so there are some things that we're looking at that we all agree on, and there are some things that we don't, and that's okay. But we do a really good job of learning from each other.
So in some states, the Secretary of State is an appointed position, correct, and not elected. Is that true?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's actually about 8, and then there are 3 states that don't have a secretary. So the lieutenant governor is in charge of the secretary's jobs there. So Alaska, Nevada, and Hawaii, I think, do not have secretaries.
I got you. So I assume then they were not represented, or did the lieutenant governors come to represent?
Yeah, so the lieutenant governor from, I think, Utah was there.
Okay.
And I was just on the phone yesterday with the lieutenant governor from Alaska. So we do interact with the lieutenant governors as well, and they play a good role in what they're doing. I think I said Nevada. It's actually Utah. Lieutenant governor. But Utah, Alaska, and Hawaii.
Did you note any difference in agendas or concerns or policy positions based on party represented there?
There's pushback again. I think this social media post on Monday was a really good example when you've got folks in Oregon and Washington and actually I think Utah and maybe California where you have such a big piece of mail-in voting that plays a role in their elections. They obviously are really high on, what the Constitution says is that the states are to make these decisions, and we don't appreciate the president pushing back. So, in a sense, but at the heart of it all, we're all actually on the same page with this one. Let's follow the Constitution. I know you don't agree with what I'm doing in my state of Oregon, but I maybe not like what you're doing in Mississippi, but we're the ones that have the ability to influence that by the legislature and how we run elections based on the Constitution. So there's some disagreements on the edge, some agreements kind of at the heart of the issue, but it's been fun to kind of how do you balance that and come together, and what are the things that we can actually work on that we agree on, cybersecurity being a big one. But even that one, with as you've seen, CISA, waiting for the new director to be appointed, some folks were kind of mad about how the president handled that. Some folks understood. Some folks are kind of waiting to make a decision. So it's been an interesting time to be the president of NAS.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's somewhat consistent, I think, with the alignment outside of those policy issues between the parties, or the lack of alignment, I should say, between the parties. So here's something I'm curious about. Do other secretaries of state have the same responsibility that ours does with respect to public lands, business registrations, UCC filings, et cetera?
That's a great question. Mississippi probably has the heaviest workload of all of them. And I'm not saying that.
I wondered. No, I often thought that why is this in the Secretary of State's office? I thought, I'm not sure what the catalyst and the genesis of that was, but yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of catalytic converters, we talk about scrap metal. I remember when we were working on scrap metal bill in the legislature when I was in the Senate, and they said, "Hey, we'll just give it to the Secretary of State's office." I was like, "Okay, sure, let's do that." So we're kind of the catch-all. And it's funny, the first conference I went to at NAS, I literally, Gerard, was in every meeting. People were like, "Why are you in this one too?" I said, "Oh, we have it too." So, we do a lot here, but we've got a great team.
I got you. Yeah, you do. No doubt about that. Well, I appreciate you, Claire. I've never really researched that. I just wondered, man, it seems like there are a lot of responsibilities. Because I remember the first time at the House when we did a little event for you when in your first cycle of running. And you would commonly say on the campaign trail, there's a lot more stuff to this office than just the voting oversight and the elections oversight.
That's exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Secretary, appreciate you joining us, and congratulations on all your success there as being elected now. You're the head dude of the whole association. That's a pretty big deal for Mississippi. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks, Gerard.
We'll talk to you later. You too. See you later. Coming right back, folks.
From the Seabrook.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. So, this Thursday, tomorrow, the Sports Talk Mississippi gang will be at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College at the Dantzler Arena in Perkinston for Meet the Bulldogs Night. Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College has some incredible things happening, and you'll hear about how they're making an impact in the state. It's coming up. And then the Not Fall Camp Tour, right? We've had, there are 3 of those on the tour, 3 scheduled events. We
had 2.
Had 2. Got 1 remaining. And that's all to celebrate the beginning of football season. It's here, and so is Sports Talk Mississippi. It's today. The Sports Talk gang will be in Hattiesburg at Ed's Burger Joint talking about the Golden Eagles. We'll have tons of giveaways like Genteel golf shirts and hoodies. Also have golf giveaways, hotel stays, and gift certificates to Philip M's at the Pearl River Resort. Ate there when we were doing the show a couple of weeks ago at the Neshoba County Fair. Excellent. The Not Fall Camp Tour is presented by Pearl River Resort, your destination for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. Go to pearlriverresort.com for more info. So just talking before we visited with Secretary of State Michael Watson about these states that allow illegals to obtain driver's licenses, though they cannot speak or read English. That is just asking for problems, and problems is exactly what we've had. As you pointed out, folks are noticing since this illegal alien ran over a family, killed them, and it turns out he couldn't pass the English language assessment test. Couldn't identify road signage as part of the test, and they still gave him a license. That's woke gone wild right there. Oh, we can't offend anybody, right? Because they think, well, we didn't give them a license because of their nationality or ethnicity. No, it's because they can't read English. Oh, my gosh, it's so maddening. Just please bring common sense back. And then Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, she's putting the kibosh on grants for solar farm projects provided by the United States Department of Agriculture. Now, this was bad policy to start with. It came from the totally misnamed Inflation Reduction Act. That was a lie, honestly. It wasn't an Inflation Reduction Act. It was more a Green New Deal light is what it was. It was advancing the Democrats' obsession with climate change. And included in that legislation, which passed without Republican support, included in that was a provision that provides substantial tax credits for solar panels. A consumer could apply and receive tax credits. I'm still looking for somebody who's done that. I know when it first came out, I said, who's going to do this? Who's going to go out and say, oh, they're going to give me $10,000 to go against the $30,000 I got to pay, and maybe over a period of time you get a payback. But I think the average person doesn't have $20,000 to plop down to buy solar panels and then wait for a long period of time to recover their investment in the form of lower electricity bills.
And you likely would never recoup that investment because those things have a lifespan.
That's right. You got to replace them. So it's not an economically sound policy, but most of them aren't. It's all about ideology. And so the Secretary of Agriculture, I applaud this move, says we're going to stop doing that. We're not going to provide tax subsidies, tax credits is really what it is, for consumers or businesses to purchase solar panels and build out on solar farms. If somebody wants to do that without government assistance, I'm fine with that, provided that it meets all the regulatory requirements, etc. I think we need to be judicious in that. I'm with people. I don't want to go consuming a bunch of farmland for that purpose. But, though, one thing we should point out is we're using less farmland than we have and producing more yield. And that is largely due to technology, by the way, including artificial intelligence, which, of course, is powered by data centers. And then we've got all kinds of advances that are in the R&D phases right now. I still think there's tremendous promise and opportunity in aeroponics. I think that's coming. It's just not cost effective now. It's cost prohibitive today. Like often any novel technology or major change in a more conventional way of producing something is. But that's a problem I think eventually will be solved because somebody will, you know the second order thinking here, somebody will figure it out that AI can't do because it'll be a human creation. They'll solve it. May use AI for their research as part of it, right? They'll solve it. It'll transform the world, and they get rich doing it, and the left will say, we don't need the billionaires. They just solved the fundamental problem of demand and supply.
That's why I say the left really doesn't give a rat's rear end about the climate, because they never take the time to tout their quote-unquote accomplishments. You were talking about the smog earlier.
Yeah.
You never hear them say, look, if you listen to us, we could fix stuff like that, or acid rain, or the river's on fire. Like, they never point to their past successes because nothing is ever good enough for them.
That is so true. No matter what, I totally agree. And never, ever recognizing successes, accomplishments. I just, I don't know. I think people need to be open to hearing about some of this stuff. And more importantly, it's important to just recognize things that we have accomplished and done that have addressed many of what they're still griping about today. It's almost like they want us to still be stuck in that period of time. Like I told this individual the other day, you're still stuck in 1865, man. That's just not happening. You can't prove it to me that it is. You can't show me an example. I can show you examples of the opposite, as a matter of fact. That's more prevalent in society. So get a move and just get to work and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities we have in our society. And there are plenty. This article that I caught by Stephen Moore, used to work on the Council of Economic Advisors. This was today in his Unleash Prosperity newsletter. He really blasts the left on their vaunted renewable energy transition to save the planet. We still get 80% of our energy from fossil fuels, and this ratio is actually rising. It's not falling. since the president has been in the White House. And this is a good thing. There are some predictions that we'll see the price of oil kind of stabilize in that $55 to $60 a barrel range. It's about $65 right now, so that could be good news for further decreases, albeit slight, in the price of fuel that we consumers purchase at the pump there. So I think that's a positive thing, a good thing. Kind of related to this issue of artificial intelligence and data centers we've been talking about is that college grads, it's being reported, are struggling to find jobs, which is interesting. And often these are graduates who have majored in some curricula involving science, technology, engineering, math, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, now let's preface that by saying that the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not very accurate. I've been sounding that alarm for a while. I did a Newsmax interview yesterday, Rhino. We were talking about the National Guard being deployed in D.C., and the left is crying that, well, the crime is down. Look at the statistics and so forth. And I started out by saying I have about as much confidence in those as I do what the Bureau of Labor Statistics produces. They make them be whatever the heck they want, it feels like. And in the case of Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser and others in city government there, I just feel like they've manipulated and distorted those statistics. Nobody feels safe in D.C. They feel safer now with a guard all around. Coming right back with a final segment.
Is your company...
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Yes, the smooth harmonies of the Eagles there. Speaking earlier about the left in this country, which still refuses to acknowledge that the vast majority of the country does not align with them on this radical gender ideology nonsense. The ground zero for the transgender gender movement in general, I've always thought to be Loudoun County, Virginia. Just a stone's throw from the nation's capital there, and populated with a lot of affluent, white, liberal elites.
Insulated idiots.
So it feels like that at least half a dozen times or so since all this stuff really started to be adopted by and penetrate society, the gender ideology, the critical race theory, DEI stuff, Loudoun County seems like it was always in the news. Something going on at the school board there in Loudoun County. Well, recently, 2 teenage boys expressed their objection to, in this case, a biological female entering the locker room and filming them as they said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be in here." And it turns out that they were hit with suspensions for complaining about a girl being in their locker room. It's just upside down. I mean, it really is. It's incredible. One of the parents, Renee Smith, said she was, quote, absolutely floored that they came back and branded my son responsible for sexual harassment and sex-based discrimination with no solid evidence whatsoever, simply because he felt uncomfortable because a girl was in the boys' dressing room. Unbelievable. The district notified the boys' parents last week after they investigated the incident, and that was done by the district's Title IX coordinator. Why do we have Title IX coordinators paying them money for that? That's the first thing that hit me when I read that. I'm a Title IX coordinator, and this may be a good person. I don't mean to be.
Obviously not.
So, I don't know them, and maybe it's unfair for me to cast aspersions.
Well, then I'll
on
be
it.
unfair. They don't have their head screwed on straight.
Okay. Oh, man. So, these are sophomore boys. They came under investigation because there was a female-to-male transgender student in their locker room. And the transgender individual recorded, I'm going to just say, the girl recorded the two guys when they asked, why is there a girl in the locker room? What else would you say? In other words, these are just two normal dudes, right? Not dudes in dresses, just normal dudes. And they're faced with a situation with an abnormal, sick-in-the-head girl who was encouraged by her parents and the teachers and the administration. Yeah, just bust on up into the boys' locker room there. It's just crazy. And then you've seen this, there's videos of the school board meeting, and they're so serious in their discussion this. Oh, my God, we've got to uphold Title IX. Since when did Title IX say that a girl can just hop into a dude's dressing room?
When loony leftists started interpreting it to mean feelings.
That's exactly right.
And bending over backwards for crazy people.
You always remind me of that. It's always about feelings. And you could argue that it's feelings that issued a driver's license to this illegal alien who can't read English and who murdered, honestly, is what happened.
Because you can't possibly hurt their feelings and point out that they come from a culture where life has no meaning.
That's true. That is true.
If you die on the highway, that was your fate to die on the highway.
Isn't that crazy? And then there's some teachers showing up that are resigning or complaining, resigning from their teaching position or complaining because their schools won't let them attach their preferred pronouns to their emails and so forth. And, of course, I'll send it to you because we can play it tomorrow. Of course, it's the video of this person you look at and know right off the bat it's a loon because they got glasses on that are about 6 inches in diameter and they're multicolored. And this is a day.
Dude in a dress. In the uniform of nonconformity.
We're out of here today. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.